in this video, which is part of the real life coding YouTube playlist, I'm going to walk you through a simple front-end task that I had to code today for this project. So this is like a project that helps us visualize certain JavaScript array methods, and there's some code that we can see and we can practice, and all sorts of like nice visualizations to learn a little bit more about array methods. On top of this project, I would like to add more resources and some more interactive games. For example, for the slice method, I would like to add this kind of like exercise that I've been working on, which is an interactive slicing game, so that you can make sure you understand how the slice works. Which means I would like to add another button here. And this is what we're going to build today. So very simple task. I want this button to be added here on the left side of its array method box. So we can click, and then there are some options in there to load some games or read some resources and go through some other links and resources available for its method. So this is what I'm going to code today. This button, it's going to be placed next to each of these method boxes, and it's going to have this nice hover effect. So let's start by doing this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press F12 and open up the DevTools. Now I could directly go and work within the code of this project. So I could go here in my VS Code and start working with my JavaScript and HTML and CSS. But what I'd like to do for these like simple, let's say, small tasks is to work directly within the DevTools. You will see in the process it's a very nice way to work within the DevTools, and then once you have something ready, you can go and copy that code into your actual files. So I'm going to use the DevTools to first create this prototype, this button, and then I'm going to grab this code and copy it to the files. So no changes at the original files at this point, just DevTools. So the thing I would like to do is I'm going to select the array method box. So each of these method boxes is just a section. As you can see, every box is highlighted. So I would like each one of these boxes to have this more button at the left side. Now, each of these sections has a position relative. So the button, the more button I would be placing is going to be absolutely positioned according to the parent element to the section. So this more button is going to be a child element of this section, and then I'm going to use position absolute to position the element right here on the left side. So we're going to learn some cool CSS rules and tricks. So the first thing is as I'm about to change some CSS and do some things, like going to select this section, and then I'm going to create like a selector here, which is kind of like a temporary thing. As you can see here, it's part of the inspector style sheet. It's not part of the actual CSS file. So if I change something here, like change the color to red, and I don't know, background white, whatever, every time I'm going to be refreshing the page, I'm going to be losing these changes, and I don't want this to happen because I might accidentally refresh the browser, and I don't want to do my work here in the DevTools and actually lose the work. So the first thing I'm going to do is, before diving into the DevTools and start experimenting, is I want to retain these changes at least temporarily within the DevTools. So I'm going to first select my element. So let me select this box, and I'm going to dynamically add this more button. So I'm going to right click, select edit as HTML, so I can directly edit the HTML within the DevTools. So I'm going to go here and right below the section element, I'm going to add my div with an ID of more, or maybe a class, because I'm going to use this more than once. So it's going to be a class with the more text. So this is the text that I'm going to be adding inside the section. And now using position absolute, I'm going to position this absolutely according to the parent element. So I will click outside of the section. You will see the button is here. Well, actually the div. And now that I think about it, it's better going to be a button. So this is the button. I'm just going to copy this because I want to keep this structure, this HTML structure, in case I lose this if I refresh. So I'm going to right click, select copy, and copy outer HTML to copy all the HTML of this element. So in case I lose it, for example, if I refresh, I can just once again go here inside this section, right click, edit as HTML, and then press enter and copy, Control or Command V to keep this structure here. And so I'm going to start adding some styling to this element, but I want to retain the changes that I will be working with in the DevTools. So I'm going to select this element, create a selector using this new style rule button here. You will see it automatically created a selector based on the element and the class. And now instead of just, adding some color here, and things that I will probably be losing after I refresh my page, I'm going to instead not use the inspector style sheet, but I'm going to go here, select this style CSS. You will see here's my style CSS, which is part of the code. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to select right here, and I'm going to go to overrides. And you will see there's this local overrides setting here. So this is where we can set up and configure DevTools to keep some overrides, some changes that we'll be making inside these overrides panels, so we can keep the changes if and after we reload the browser, or even after we close and open the DevTools. So I will go to the style CSS. So I'll go to the page to see the resources of the page, the actual files that are loaded. I'm going to go here to the style CSS, which is the main CSS file that is being loaded by the index.html and contains all the styles for this application. And I'm going to right click and select override content. Now what will happen here is that it will automatically switch to the overrides panel, and you will see that now I have this style CSS which is overriding the original CSS. So here's my original CSS, and then here is the overrides. So what happens now is that if I, for example, I will go down and add like a section that will contain this styling for the more button. And let's say I will just add some rule here just to see if it works. So you can see that the changes are now reflected in the page. They are part of the style CSS file at the end. Now this setting at this point doesn't touch the original file. So if I go here in my original code, in the actual style CSS file, you will see that there's nothing here at the end. So the DevTools cannot access this file, but inside the memory of the browser of the DevTools, these changes are retained. So if I refresh now, you will see that my style overrides are being retained, which is pretty cool. I can also close the DevTools, open up refresh the page, then reopen the DevTools with F12, and I will still see my overrides here. So overrides, make sure to go to overrides, enable the local overrides. You can of course disable this. So if I refresh, I will see the original CSS. If I click, I will see the overrides right here. We can also see the changes that we made, like the actual additional CSS changes that we make on this style CSS file. So for example, if I remove this line and I save and I click Control S or Command S, you will probably notice that I have like added these these 4 lines in the original style CSS, and I have removed a couple of lines from the also from the original style CSS. Now, if I open the command palette in DevTools, which is Control Shift P or Command Shift P, and I search for changes, I can see the changes that I made to the original file. And as you can see, I see that I have deleted these 4 lines from the original file, and that I have also added these 4 lines. So we can always go back and check what changes we made through this override panel. So that's pretty cool. Let me just let me go here, changes again, and I think if I'm not, I can go back and I just remove the changes. So I will start from scratch. I will go once again here, and I will say more button. I will create a class more for this button, save, refresh, and now I will have to add the HTML element again, the more button. So I will go here, edit the HTML. Let's see if I have, yeah, I still have my button markup in the in memory. Okay, I have this button, and I have the more class in my style CSS override, so I can start adding some styles. Let's take a look to see what this button is going to look like. As you can see, it's kind of like it has like a rotation, so it's rotated to the left like 90 degrees. It has this magenta background and some border radius here on the top left. So let's start adding this styling. I'm going to pick the button, and then I'm going to add this nice dark magenta color that I recently discovered. I'm going to add the color white, and I'm going to remove the default button border, so border none. And then for this button, because I want the positioning to be very, very precise, I'm going to give it a very specific width and height. So I'm going to give it a width of 100 pixels and a height of 32 pixels. And then the font size will be something around 16 pixels. So kind of like half the height of the box. I will need to add a border radius at the top left corner of the button. So I'm going to say border top left radius to give it a nice smooth, like no, that's sorry, that's the right, top right. And this is what I want to give my button. And now I'm going to text align center. So text align center is the default value, so I'm just going to remove this. But I want to give it some space from the right side. This border radius kind of like hides some of the space here on the right, so I want more to be a little bit on the left, just to have a kind of like a better visual balance. So I'm going to give a padding of right, like around 12 pixels, or let's say 16 pixels. So just to move it a little bit to the left. So this padding now gives my my text content a little bit of a push from the right to the left. I will just remove. I'm using the top and down arrow keys here to play around with padding. And then I can also check to see how this padding from the right side, if I hover over this element, you will see that on the right side of the box, we see this green area, which is the padding. I can also see this through the computed panel here. So here's the padding, both on the left and on the right side. So I didn't realize there was like a padding, a default padding at the left. So let me go back here and remove that padding. So I'm going to say I'm going to use all the sides of the box model to say there is a 0 pixel padding on the top, there is a 12 pixel padding on the right, a 0 padding on the bottom, and the 0 padding on the left side. So that should give me just padding from the right side. Remember, this is top, right, bottom, left, like clockwise. With the computed, I can see now that the padding, you can see the green box highlighted on the right side. This is the padding that I added, and it's pushing the content a little bit to the left. I can also play around with this computed box. I can say, okay, just give it 0. Now there's no padding, so you can also play around here with the padding, and once you get the styling that you want, you can keep it. Okay, I have some nice styling. I will go here and see that the changes here are being retained. Let me just copy this just to be sure and refresh, yeah, and let me refresh to see whether the changes are retained. I will refresh. Now the changes are being retained here. That's nice. The only thing that I lost was the HTML, which unfortunately I cannot create at this point because the content for this section box is created dynamically through JavaScript. So I'm just going to right click, edit as HTML, and then div ID. Sorry, that's class more div, and I'm going to copy this, and this time I'm going to keep it. Okay, let's go here and see that I have something that changed. So plus more, you can see that the text alignment now is kind of like messed up, so I'm not sure what's happened. So let me put text align center. That can give a horizontal alignment to the center, but what I really want is for this. Oh, I realized what I changed. This was a button that has some default settings like text align. So that was my bad. And now I want to give like a font weight bold to so font weight. This is weight bold to give a more kind of like a bold appearance on the text. I also want the cursor to become pointer whenever I hover over this element. So cursor pointer. Let me see. Yes. And now if I want to check the hover state, but we'll go through that in a minute. So now I want to rotate this element to, first of all, position it absolutely according to its parent element that has a position that it's not static. So if I make this position absolute, it will be absolutely positioned according to the first parent element that doesn't have a position set to static. So the section has a position relative, it's not static. So now this element just sticks to the top left corner of the parent element by default. I can also add these top and left values, and then I can tweak them to like move it around. Okay. So we have this absolutely positioned button at this point, and now I want to rotate this 90 degrees to the left side, to the left side. So I'm going to use the transform CSS rule for that. So I'm going to say transform, and I'm going to use rotate, and I'm going to start with 0 degrees so that you can see what's happening. So when I press the shift key on my keyboard and press the up and down arrows, you can see I can rotate like this element. So what I want to do is I want to rotate it like 90 minus 90 100 degrees, so to the left side, but I want this to be positioned to the left side. So I want this to stick here to the left side of this section box. So I have this rotation, and I will just make it back to 0. And because I want to actually change the point through which this element is being rotated. Right now you can see that it's being rotated from the center. So you can see kind of like there's a center point between the horizontal and the vertical axis of this element. And as I change the rotation, it just rotates through the main, let's say, axis. But I can change this this thing, which is called like the origin, the transform origin, and make the element rotate according to a different, let's say, anchor point. So that's the transform origin. And let me change something. So I'm going to start with the default values, which is like 0% and 0%. So let's see what happens if I change this. So no, sorry, the default values are, I think, 50% and 50%. So this is the 50% of the horizontal axis, and this is the 50% of the vertical axis. So these default values means that this element is being rotated around the center of the element. I can change this so that the origin is moved a little bit. So 100% on the horizontal axis and 0% on the vertical axis. So I'm moving the transform origin. But let's see now what's this this point. So see how the rotation changes. So you can see it's the top right point of the box right here through which we are rotating. If I move this like to the 0 and 100%, now we will have moved this anchor point, this origin, you can see at the bottom left corner. So I can move the origin and I can rotate through like a different transform origin, as it's called. So I am for this case, I want to move the let's say I want to move this to be I think I'm going to keep this setting. So I'm going to keep this origin point. So that will be here. Okay. And this is what I want to do. And then I want to move this button a little bit to the bottom. So then I will say I will go to the top and I will subtract the width of the box, which is 100 pixels. So I'm going to say minus 100 pixels. So I'm moving this, as you can see, from its original point and then downwards 100 pixels. And that gives me a little bit more space. So you can see now I move this 100 pixels to the bottom, which gives me this position. Let me see. I'm going to change the origin. So let me try this, which I think it's a little bit easier. Okay. So I'm just moving this, I'm rotating this through the top right corner. So let me go back to minus 90 degrees. Okay, so now I'm moving this based on the, yeah, I think it's the top right. Yeah. And now let me see what happens when I move this. So I no longer need this this movement to the top because I'm using a different transform origin. So I will stick with top 0. So I don't anymore need to move this from the top, but I need to move it to the left. So I will create like a minus. I will use a minus units here to move it to the left side. Otherwise, it will go 100 pixels to the right. So I'm moving this 100 pixels to the left. To actually see why this makes sense is because by default we have like 0 pixels and then we want to move it according to its width, which is 100 pixels. So minus 100 pixels, and we go there, and then we can transform this. But now, as you can see, we have the height that is like keeping this this element here inside the box. So I also want to add this 32 pixels of its width to the left positioning, so that it moves along this axis. So I've added the height and the width to the left so that it moves according to its width and height. Now I will demonstrate this by once again go to 0. So we had like the element at the top 0 and left 0, and then I move it 100 pixel, which is the width, plus 32 pixel, which is the height. And now if I rotate, you will see how this in fact sticks to the side. This is why I just had to move it to the left for according to its width and height. So play around with these settings and visually see what's happening when you're transforming these CSS properties. So this is no longer needed. And now I'm almost finished. The last thing I want to do is I want to just go here and select another section and edit as HTML, paste the button, and see whether that also works for another section. You will see that it doesn't work. So there's some problem here. Let's see what is happening here. So I have this section, it's absolutely positioned, so it's totally fine. And in here I have some something that's messing up this. That's because once again I forgot the button. So I just copied the div. So let me just right click and copy the outer HTML. Now I'm copying the whole markup. Go to another section, right click, edit as HTML, then paste, and boom. Okay, I need to remember that I'm using a button and not a div. So I will go to the first one, and the last thing I want to do is to add kind of like an animation. So when I hover over this, there's like a small like hovering effect. So for this one, I'm going to start with an opacity of 0.5. So I'm going to lower the opacity. And then when I hover over this element, I want the opacity to become 1, so 100%. Now, the one way that I can check, I can simulate the hover state of this element, is to actually select this element and either go here and select hover state. So now I'm simulating the hover state. Or I can right click here, select force state and hover. So now this is like a simulated hover, and I can add a new rule here and say dot more hover. I have some styles. You can see there's some styles. Let me go here and see if I have some leftovers. There's some styles. Let me see what's happening. Why is there this? Okay, I had some like temporary changes earlier, so these were just the experimental changes, so I'm just going to get rid of them. So once again, I'm not going to work with the inspector style sheet. I'm going to go to the style, add a class for the hover, so that this will be returned, and I can check now the opacity, and you can see as I change the hover pseudo class, it automatically reflects my changes here, because this button is in a simulated hover state. I don't have to hover over it with my mouse. The DevTools is already simulating the hover, so I can change the I can test the changes here. Now this is nice, but I want a smooth transition going from 0.5 to opacity 1. So I'm going to add a transition, a smooth transition from the opacity state. That would be like 3000 milliseconds, and a linear, I'm going to use a linear function for the animation. So now you can see there's this nice hovering animation effect. Now I'm okay. I'm think my changes I'm done with the changes. I can deselect the hover. I have now my styling, and now I can open up the command palette once again, Control Shift P or Command Shift P, go to changes, check the changes that I made. So these are the additions I made to the style CSS. I can copy them from here, or I can go to my style CSS, grab them. So I'm going to cut this, then refresh, so they're gone. And I'm going to go and paste them in my actual CSS file. So I'm going to go here. This is the style CSS. I'm going to paste this. I'm using Git, so you can see that I have some additional commits to make. Now let me refresh and see whether this is still working. So I'm going to have to manually add the button. Once again, I'm got into the bad habit of using a div instead of a button. You can see there's something wrong happening. Let me just right click and copy this. So let me refresh. And let me open up the style CSS and see whether I can see the changes that I just added. So there's nothing here. So let me check. I have saved my file. Okay, and let me refresh. So as you can see here, this overrides my original file. I will refresh, and then the style CSS. So I cannot see my changes. So for some reason, style CSS with the latest changes is not being reflected. I will try and right click and delete this override file. So let's see whether that will, so let me go here, check the file, more button, yes, okay. So I had to go to the overrides and delete the style CSS that was overriding the original file, because the new changes are now part of the original file. So I had to right click and delete the overrides. Once I'm done, just refreshing, yes, the changes are found, are to be found in the original file. Now I can go here, just add the button to this element. So edit, and boom. Okay, I'm done on the style part. Let me go here and try to add this in these sections. So I still have to make some changes in the JavaScript, but there's some dynamic content, as you can see, that is being created when the application loads. So there's no content in the original HTML. Let me see if I can hard code this button and refresh. And yeah, the content is gone. Or sorry, slice. Let me add this in the slice. So I'm just hard coding the button, refreshing, and yeah, okay. This JavaScript that runs on this page is automatically like updating the content. So it's just empty, it empties the section from any inner HTML, and then it dynamically adds these sections. So I have to probably go in my JavaScript and find the place where this button is going to be added. Let me see whether I can quickly find this in my code just to see it running. So initialize method, I have to go. So let's go to the slice, and then I'm going to add some. I'm adding some inner HTML, and then let me see if I go here. There's this method that dynamically creates, and let me try to add something. I don't know. So this is just for checking whether. No, it's not being added. Anyway, like this is the JavaScript part. I'm going to have to figure this out, but at least I now have my my button. So whenever I add a button, I still have my styling. I hope you learned something useful today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like, and leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.